Hi, everybody. It is Sunday, August 10th. And yeah, I just want to do my monthly sort of check in. And what I was going to say was, I've kind of noticed that um, there's more chatter, more talk about uh, kind of a holographic universe that we live in. And yeah, I know I've been down this road before, and I'll kind of explain it the best I know too as well, so you kind of get the gist of what's going on. Is yeah, that's basically basically what we live in. We live in, well, what some people are starting to call it now is a simulated or a simulator or whatever. But when you understand how everything's sort of uh, put together, like even scientists have figured that out. They always figured out, well, even in a small atom that's basically mostly empty space, and not only that, but it's all just pure energy anyway. So if everything is energy, it's just in a sense a way of coding it, giving it uh, giving it a value, or it's giving it parameters. So everything is based on that. Now, yeah, going back to how this all started is we are all, and I know on my last video I was trying to explain that, like I'm an alien, or I'm an extraterrestrial, but I'm come into this world. What what I In order to clarify that even more, is we are all sort of ETs, and we're all here having this earthly human experience. So, like I said, I'm going to try to go back to try to explain how this all started. And I know I touch on this in my book, and it's basically how we as a collective, as well as uh, um, source energy, we've decided to create these physical worlds to, um, in some ways, it's a way of playtesting um, concepts, and, well, like, even for instance, just moral guidelines is kind of a loose concept, because it really depends on your perspective. So what we've designed is worlds that we can play out these uh, polarized, uh, perspectives, like positive and negative, and things like that. So we created, because we are all just pure energy. That's in a sense who we really are. We're just pure energy orbs, sort of. But over time, playing these games and being in these simulators, I look at it more like a holodeck, but however you want to look at it, like a matrix, a holodeck, simulator. We come into these worlds, and then uh, we the engine that drives them is our consciousness. It's basically, in other words, also our our desires, or sort of what we put into them, is what happens here. So, okay, I'm sorry, I keep getting ahead of myself here, but I'm going to go back to, okay, so when we started making these, they got more and more complex, and more and larger. So we live in a simulator, but the simulator is, what we've done is we've basically given them different frequencies. So we live in a third level. I call it grade 3 myself, because I look at it more like classrooms. But we live on the third level of a frequency universe. So it isn't just like Earth is a simulator. We're talking the whole universe is a simulation for us to play out these uh, morality games. They are sort of games, but um, they're meant to teach us I guess in a sense, in some ways, how to socialize and how to interact with each other, and also, yeah, we learn so much. So in a sense, this is our. I know I talk about this also in my book. I call it God Camp. This is on these lower levels. It's chaotic on purpose because we're all learning these lessons on how to interact with each other and based on service to self or service to others. So we, so we, because when you're a young spirit, and we see this with animals too, like if we have pets, they look at the world only through their eyes. So it's all about themselves. It's all about selfish. Just like they're hungry, or they want attention or whatever. So it's very much like a child that way. It's just very self-centered. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's trying to survive and also understand where it fits in this reality. So I mean, as we get older, we learn how to adapt, and also we compromise. It isn't always about what we want. So like it's over trillions and trillions. I mean, there's really no such thing as time outside these worlds. But if you had to put a time on it, literally, it's been trillions and trillions and trillions of years of us perfecting these realities. So much so, and it's also part of the game, is when you come into them, you think this is it. This is as physical and as real as it can get. But again, when you look at it on a micro level, this is all just energy. So it's energy transformed into physical objects. Now, who gave these codes are, well, it's us, but it's beings on higher levels, let me put it that way, that have perfected the art of doing this. So in a sense, they're programmers. That's another way of looking at it. They've programmed this reality so that colors are noticed by our eyes, textures. It's like the table of elements. You know what I mean? That's kind of what they've done. This is all based on, you could call it a science or physics, and it's real, but it's created by them. Now, if you're more of a religious person, you could think of it as like, well, it's created by God, but God ultimately is all of us. We're all part of that consciousness. So we're all just pieces of that. I know I'm bouncing around here with crazy topics, but I'm trying to simplify it as usual, trying to make sense of this. But so as we've come along, we've created these more complex holodecks that seem so real. Well, because they are, because this is physically real, but it's all still just pure energy. So, and most of the programming here they're self replicating and self maintaining systems. Take for instance, the way the sun is evolving around, not the sun, but the planets are revolving around like the sun in this galaxy, and then the solar system. It's all basically was put there and designed to sort of run itself. That's kind of how we've made these worlds like that. But we made it so that we can interact with them, and that's why there's a multitude of life forms throughout this universe that are all interacting. Now, I know I'm going on and on here, but so what we're sort of moving into is we're basically graduating to uh, a higher classroom, one where we're interacting with other beings in this universe, because we've been isolated for so long, and it's not by mistake. It's we've been isolated by, I call them the controllers. It's basically entities that have realized, or they know all too well how this physical reality works, and they want to keep us, or anybody that accidentally comes into this system, they want to keep us here manifesting realities that they want, not not what we came in for. Now here's where it gets kind of complicated, and I'm touching on so many subjects that I can expand on, but I'm always just trying to just simplify things so you kind of get the gist of it. But what makes these worlds complicated is they're run by our consciousness and our desires. So when we come in here into these worlds, we generally try to set up a situation, especially because we come in also with groups of beings, groups of spirits. It's like spiritual families trying to have interact and have particular lessons that we want to play out. We usually try to plan them as best we can, but the problem with these worlds are uh, it's combined consciousness. So in other words, combined agendas that are being played out. So it makes it difficult. It's like I'll give a really simple explanation. Is let's say you're at work, and everybody is going to vote what they're going to have for takeout because someone's going to go buy lunch for everybody, and the consensus was pizza. So it's like, but you don't particularly want, you're the minority, and you didn't want a pizza. As a matter of fact, you just wanted a hamburger or a hot dog. So the problem is because it's a combined reality, we have to kind of go with the flow of the majority, and that's the problem. Is if you know how to control these people's minds, beings that are here having experiences, you kind of control the narrative or the agenda, and that's the problem. So yeah, when it comes to wanting what you want, you have to almost step out of that collective, and that's in a sense what I've been doing for many years. I've chose to live outside. It's what the problem with that is. I mean, there's lots of problems, but you're living outside of society. It's it's almost like you're going off the grid because it's like you don't want to go along with what everybody's doing. And if everybody's saying, okay, we want, gas-powered cars, whatever, then guess what? That's what everybody's desire is, and that's what we're going to get. And now, if everybody was brainwashed into saying or talked into buying, okay, all we have is electric cars now, well, guess what? You don't have much choice, do you? Because you're in this game to play out your desires, but also you can't change the majority. That's the problem. So you have to go with the flow or roll with the punches, which makes these games more random and more intriguing in some ways. But it's difficult to have your free will, even though you do have free will. But it's difficult to play that out in these realities. So anyway, I'm going to try to sum this up. Is yes, that's what everybody's going to sooner or later find out. And this is what's going to help us get out of this situation, because this has been ongoing forever. Is people don't realize, but we're living in a physical simulator created for spirits is to inhabit. And part of the deal is, when you do this, to make it completely envelop your experience, is you have and I talked about this before, spiritual amnesia. So when you come in here, you really, your brain is wiped out of its memory, physical memory, but even your spirit is disconnected from its true self, sort of. It's almost like you come in here as an aspect of yourself, but there's no connection. Well, that's what you learn to try to do. Is you learn to try to connect to who you really are, and your memories of not only past lives, but also, uh, where you've come from and how old of a spirit you are, and whatever, how long have you been around, and whatever. But anyway, so when you come in here, for the most part, you come in here with a blank slate. Like it's like, wow, okay, this is Earth, and we breathe this air, and we eat this food, and so this is what everybody's doing down here. I guess we're all fighting each other and whatever. You just become part of the sheeple. That's the problem with being down here, is you have to follow the herd, and wherever the herd's going, it's like, well, if you abandon that herd, it's not an easy life if you live outside our social constructs. So anyway, I could split this off into so many different topics and really expand on them. But that's the gist of it. Is yeah, we're waking up to the fact that we are controlling this. So that's why I always usually end these by saying stay positive, because if you are envisioning or manifesting a positive world, that's what we're all co-creating. So, and that's kind of where we want to be at. Anyway, that's kind of what we're waking up to. So that's my sort of monthly sort of explanation of what's going on. Okay, that's it, and I'll do another one. Let's see, this is August, probably mid-September, maybe before. It depends on what's happening, but yeah, we're all waking up. It's slow but steady, and it's all going forward, very positive. So, okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.